The playoffs are here, and you can predict the action all the way to the finals with FanDuel Predicts. Predict the spread, the total points, and even the game-winning moments that make the playoffs. Sign up and get a $25 bonus with FanDuel Predicts.
Offered by FanDuel Prediction Markets, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant. 18-plus bonus is non-withdrawable and expires 7 days after receipt. Trading derivatives involves significant risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Manage your activity with their consumer protection tools. Restrictions apply. See terms at FanDuel.com/predicts/bonus-offer-terms.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me. Taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
You know, I spent 40 years in the corroded rectum of the two-party system, and I lived for many years in the swamp. There are evenings when the pageantry of official Washington reveals itself as nothing more than silk draped over steel nerves. Last night at the Washington Hilton, amid tuxedos, gowns, champagne, camera flashes, and the annual self-congratulation of the White House press corps, the illusion was shattered in an eruption of gunfire, screams, and yes, panic. What began as a glittering dinner became in seconds the third major assassination attempt or near assassination attempt involving President Donald Trump in under 2 years. The ballroom that expected laughter instead received terror. The setting itself kind of carries dark historical resonance. The Washington Hilton is, however, forever linked with the attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan in 1981. That a second modern presidential bloodletting nearly unfolded in the same complex is a fact too astonishing to really ignore. Critics had long questioned why a commercial hotel with such history remained the venue for high-level presidential appearances. Last night, those concerns were answered in the most violent manner possible. If ever there was an argument for the building of the president's ballroom within the presidential complex, well, last night was it. The White House Correspondents' Dinner was already underway. President Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, cabinet officials, lawmakers, journalists, celebrities, and invited guests had entered the ballroom only moments earlier. Dinner service had just begun. Waiters moved through the aisles, glassware clinked, the official hum of elite conversation floated throughout the room. Then, approximately between 8:34 and 8:40 p.m. Eastern, the sound came. At first, many attendees mistook it for balloons popping or audio equipment malfunctioning. That is how insulated privilege often hears danger. But the confusion lasted only a heartbeat. Agents began shouting warnings. Security personnel moved with sudden velocity. Then came the unmistakable truth. Shots had been fired just outside the secure ballroom perimeter. Authorities say the gunman, identified as Cole Allen, a school teacher from California, charged the main magnometer screening area outside the ballroom. Reports indicate that he passed at least one checkpoint and may have breached two separate security layers before he was stopped. Surveillance footage reportedly showed him sprinting through a corridor towards a protected event area. He didn't reach the ballroom himself, but he got close enough to trigger one of the most alarming presidential security breaches in modern history. He was indeed heavily armed. Metropolitan Police said Allen possessed a shotgun, a handgun, and multiple knives. Investigators believe the combination reflected preparation for several forms of violence: a shotgun for mass casualties in a crowd, a handgun for movement through the hallways and tighter spaces, and knives for close quarters brutality or as backup weapons if the firearms failed. Investigators are now examining whether any of those weapons were loaded or assembled inside the hotel itself. The shooting reportedly lasting 20 to 25 seconds. That span is brief in a clock and eternal in a crisis. In those seconds, one Secret Service agent was struck in the chest area. Corrective armament, thank goodness, prevented that he was not fatally wounded. President Trump later remarked, "The vest did the job." Officials later said the wounded agent, thank God, is expected to recover. Inside the ballroom, chaos spread with primitive speed. Roughly 2,600 attendees were inside or connected to the event. Guests in formal wear dove beneath tables. Chairs toppled, phones flew, handbags were snatched from seats. Witnesses described repeated screams of, "Get down, get down." Armed agents rushed in with rifles drawn, while senior officials were reportedly pushed to the floor and physically shielded by their protective details. And because satire writes itself in Washington, D.C., some members of the well-heeled White House press corps, while scrambling for safety, reportedly did not neglect to seize expensive bottles of wine or liquor from dinner tables on their way out. Even in a moment of mortal danger, the instinct for complimentary privilege remained intact. President Trump was moved immediately, so was Melania Trump, Vice President Vance, cabinet officials including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and other protectees. By all accounts, the extraction was swift, disciplined, and professional. Whatever failures occurred in the outer screening layers, the inner protective responses appear to have functioned with precision once the threat actually materialized. The gunman was subdued live. Officers and agents converged rapidly and tackled him before he could penetrate further into the secured event zone. He was not shot dead at the scene, although there were online reports to the contrary. And this itself is a fact of immense investigative value. You see, a living suspect leaves behind motives, communications, travel history, finances, writings, electronics, and the possibility of discovering whether he acted alone or with the assistance authorities say that he initially has refused to cooperate. Public reporting suggests that Allen, as 31 years old and a resident of Torrance, California, is a public school teacher. Reports further state that he was a registered guest at the hotel. That detail may prove central to the entire case. Hotel guest status could have allowed freer movement inside the portions of the complex and reduced suspicion from staff or security observers. Investigators believe he traveled by train from Southern California, reportedly routing through Chicago before arriving in Washington, D.C. That has raised obvious questions about whether rail travel was selected to avoid airport screening procedures. Reports also describe Allen as highly educated, with a background linked to the California Institute of Technology and experience as a tutor, programmer, or independent video game developer. Such details only deepen the public fascination with this case. America has seen this before, that technical competence and physiological instability can coexist in catastrophic form. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche said the investigators believe the subject targeted administration officials and those that likely included President Donald Trump among those intended targets. Blanche further stated that Allen was not cooperating. Metropolitan Police Interim Chief Jeffrey Carroll said that at this stage, it appears the suspect was a lone actor. That's what they told us about Lee Harvey Oswald, and that's what they told us about Thomas Matthew Crooks. Candidly, I doubt it. Secret Service spokesman Anthony Guglielmi said that the president and the first lady were safe, one individual was in custody, and the situation remained under active law enforcement assessment. Potential charges are going to be severe. Officials say they include assault on a federal officer, attempting to kill a federal officer, firearms offenses tied to violent crime, and discharging a firearm during a crime of violence. Additional counts could include attempted assassination, terrorism-related charges, or conspiracy if evidence emerges that Cole Allen had accomplices. The agencies involved, the United States Secret Service, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Metropolitan Police Department of Washington, D.C., and of course the Department of Justice, and federal prosecutors in the District of Columbia as well. Other federal agencies may also be assisting with forensic and intelligence support. President Trump said later they believed that he was likely the target. He praised the agents and officers who responded. He also displayed that mordant humor that he has often marked his reactions under fire, joking afterwards. Nobody told me that this was such a dangerous profession. He reportedly criticized the hotel as an imperfect, secure venue, and yet again renewed calls for a permanent White House ballroom capable of hosting large events under hardened security conditions. That argument for a presidential ballroom within the presidential complex will now gain force. How did a heavily armed suspect get this close to the president after Butler and after the attack on Trump in the West Palm Beach Trump International Golf Course, as well as the guy who breached the Mar-a-Lago perimeter only weeks ago? How did hotel guest status permit internal movement? Were there signs missed? Did anyone help him? Why was a commercial venue again entrusted with an event involving the President of the United States? Those questions now dominate the aftermath.